All right, everybody, hello and welcome to installment 3 of our 10-part workshop series. Tonight we're going to be covering air quality monitoring tools with one of Dr. Wilson's students, Vivek. So rather than steal his thunder, I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself, and let's get right into it. So feel free to hop on, Vivek, when you have a chance.
Thanks, John. I'll just go ahead and share my screen with my slides, if that's okay. All right. Can everybody? Okay, everyone can see my screen?
Yep, they're looking good on my end.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you all for having me here today. My name is Vivek Ravichandran. I am a second-year doctoral student at the University of Maryland School of Public Health. I work alongside Ariel Noble and others on this call at the Center for Community Engagement, Environmental Justice and Health. And today I'm ecstatic to share and teach everyone how to utilize low-cost air monitors to measure criteria air pollutants such as particulate matter. I see that the chat is populating, so I don't think I can see the messages, but please feel free to interrupt me if there's anything urgent that comes up. So this workshop will take on the following steps. First, we'll talk about different types of air quality monitoring. You have regulatory monitors that the government agencies utilize, and then you have low-cost community science monitors as well. We'll then talk about the need for what we call hyperlocalized air monitoring to fill in data gaps that have been left behind by these government agencies. We'll then differentiate mobile versus stationary monitoring and talk about the benefits of both of these techniques. Then we'll take a closer look at the purple air monitors. So the purple air monitors are specific monitors that we at SIEGE use and that we have hyperlocal networks throughout the Mid-Atlantic region on and elsewhere across the United States. Then I'll get into a quick demonstration, but I understand that since we don't really have purple air monitors in the audience, we can kind of talk about what actually occurs when you purchase a monitor, when you open the box, what's in the box, and then how to actually deploy it and collect data. We'll then talk about what sort of analysis can be done once the data collects. And then we'll conclude with a Q&A and discussion and talk more. I want to keep this as conversational as possible. I don't want to do all of the talking too. I want folks to have a chance to ask questions because we are in this to collect data together. So regulatory monitoring. The EPA currently operates a nationwide network. As you can see right here on the bottom left, it's relatively sporadic, but these monitors meet rigorous quality control and quality assurance purposes. So this is how the EPA is able to regulate air pollution. On the right, you can see how air pollution is contributed, and you have these 6 criteria air pollutants. You have particulate matter, you have lead, which has been linked to lots of poisoning, and it's also present in homes, a lot of older homes. You have NOx, nitrogen dioxide, ground level ozone, carbon monoxide, etc. And as mentioned, these government monitors are relatively sporadic. So as precise as they are, as valid as the readings are, they are oftentimes located several miles away from what we call EJ communities. And these consist of various disadvantaged communities, and we have various screening tools to identify those communities. The reason this is problematic is you have on the right a map of 2 districts. You have San Francisco, and then you have Oakland, 2 cities. And within these 2 cities, you still observe that at the city block resolution, air pollution, whether it's black carbon, whether it's fine particulate matter, whether it's NOx, anything, you have gradients that are 400% apart. So you could be living in one city block. Someone who's within walking distance of you could be exposed to 400% higher air pollution. So that really emphasizes the need for hyperlocal monitoring and why we simply cannot rely on existing government monitors to collect data for us. So that's really the exigence behind air quality monitoring. But I do want to connect this to environmental justice and injustice. So pollutant facilities, we call these pollutogens, oftentimes exploit what's known in the EJ sphere as the path of least resistance. So they station their facilities in low-income, predominantly communities of color, because they assume that these communities lack the capacity to mobilize against these decisions. You oftentimes have delayed permitting processes as well, and you get what's pictured here on the right. You have a playground over here where kids play. You have schools where kids learn. You have the air which kids breathe, and then you have these pollutogens stationed right adjacent to those. Overall, you see a cumulative effect here. So you have a lack of government monitors. You have a sparse network. You also have poor air quality surveillance, and then a lack of enforcement, as well as an avenue for pollutant facilities and corporations to exploit these communities. Another thing that I recently came across in the literature was the idea that a lot of community hearings, a lot of opportunities for community engagement happen during business hours, but this leaves out a large chunk of the population that might not be able to attend. So you lack community representation as well. So I just wanted to sort of paint the picture here and identify all these contributing factors towards the environmental injustices associated with air pollution. So I wanted to propose the idea of low-cost monitors, and these are relatively low cost, so about $200 to $500 depending on the monitor, but this is significantly cheaper than the price of government monitors, which can cost upwards of $10,000. And various studies have shown that there is a strong correlation between low-cost monitors and the state-of-the-art government monitors. And this picture to the right, to basically summarize, it does show a strong correlation between the two readings. So we can rely on low-cost monitors to provide as reliable data, upwards of 95 to 98% similar to what these government monitors would produce. Additionally, the government agencies such as the EPA and others at the state level have developed what are known as correction factors. So this is simply a formula that you can kind of put into Excel and convert all your readings to produce the actual concentrations that you're exposed to. So it's really fascinating and emergent technology that we have at our disposal. Additionally, the benefits of a low-cost monitors and community science techniques is that users such as us can upload this information directly to the cloud. So this makes it publicly accessible, this makes it transparent, and you can see exactly at the block level, at the street level, what your exposure actually is. So with that being said, we're gonna hop into the idea of stationary versus personal monitors, starting with personal monitors. So these are the more portable devices. They're about the size of, I would say, your fist, if not smaller. So you can carry them wherever you go. And they can be utilized to perform what we call environmental storytelling or environmental journalism, which is something that Dr. Wilson and our center, Siege, is trying to incorporate into our projects. So residents can wear these monitors. They can carry them around to work, to playgrounds, to pick up their kids from work, and they can document their personal exposure as they go about their daily routines. So I think this is a great avenue to connect environmental health, to connect public policy with journalism. And an example of a personal low-cost monitor is here to the right, sort of shaped like the Snapchat logo, as I like to call it. This is an Aircast and Airbeam, and this measures particulate matter, fine particulate matter, or PM2.5, humidity, and temperature.
Out of curiosity, if I can interrupt you for a second.
Yeah, of course, of course.
What does one of those personal monitors run for any of our enterprising environmental journalists here?
Sorry, what was that?
What does one of these portable monitors tend to cost in case somebody on the call wants to take up environmental journalism for themselves?
Let's see. The last time I've utilized an Aircast and Airbeam here was in 2016. I'm trying to see.
Okay.
I would say it's right in the $200 to $250 range.
Okay.
And there are older versions. that are cheaper, but I believe they're coming out with their most recent release, Aircast and Airbeam 2 or 3. So that might be a little bit more pricey, but yeah, normally within that lower range, $200 to $250.
Okay.
Mm.
A little more expensive than I thought.
That is expensive. That is expensive. But I will say, you know, relative to government monitors, it's a fairly good deal. And
Oh, absolutely.
big institutions, you know, we have agreements, so we're able to purchase these air monitors and disperse them into the communities that we're partnered with. So personally, for example, in Cheverly, Maryland, we have a network of about 25 monitors. It's pretty
Oh,
dense.
wow. That
So
is pretty good.
Vivek, this is Marvin. Just a quick question.
Yes.
So and you may have mentioned this and I may have just zoomed out. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries.
How's the information collected? So when you purchase this thing, if anybody ever decided want to purchase this, do you get like an app or something with that? Where does the data go? How is it being
Right.
used?
So when you utilize a Airbeam, you actually have to link your email address, and then it actually sends you a spreadsheet with the data as well. But when you're using the flow, wherever you walk, wherever you go, there is a path associated with that. So it actually it's fairly accurate. So like whatever street you're on, when you're walking up and down the street, it'll show your trajectory. And Cast and Airbeam, you can utilize that on both Samsung as well, or Android as well as Apple.
I have a question.
Yes.
How large an area can you monitor? Let's say you're standing still.
Mm-hmm. How large an area, meaning like if you're as in if you're walking, if you're standing still and then you have the monitor on you?
Yes, correct.
So it'll just collect for that specific point. If that answers your question, yeah.
Sure. I think the question is like, what radius around you is it taking
Yes.
measurements of? Like, are
Right.
you measuring
Thank
the air
you.
where you are and across
Yeah.
the street, or is it just like a 10-foot circle around where you're
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. That's probably more of a technical question for us.
standing? Okay.
Exact. Yeah. I'm not sure about the exact radius.
I'm just wondering about the number of devices you might have to purchase for a given area, or is it dependent on the movement of whoever's, collecting the data?
Definitely dependent on the movement. Like especially with the personal monitors, what I love about these is you could walk alongside an entire block. Like you could walk back and forth several times throughout the day if you wanted to have a project like that. And you could collect data during the rush hour, you collect data during the off-peak as well as evening rush hour. And you can get the exact precise measurements. Whereas with these stationary monitors, like you still have gaps, like you're not able to cover the entire block. You kind of set them in one spot. But that's why we need, say, 25 stationary monitors, whereas you could use one Airbeam and cover a lot of ground. Now it would be time intensive, but that is an option that does save costs. That's why I mentioned here it's much cheaper than deploying a fixed monitor.
Thank you.
Yep. Sorry, there's some background noise. I'm just gonna put my earphones in so you don't hear that. Were there any other questions from the chat or any urgent questions before I continue?
I don't see any in the chat, but if somebody wants to pipe up, now's your chance.
I think it's a good stopping point for anyone else who has questions. All right, well, I will go ahead and continue and we'll save any additional ones for the Q&A. So those were the stationary monitors, and here we have, those were the personal mobile monitors. So personal, mobile, we sort of conflate those two terms, but here we have the stationary ones. And to the right, you have an example of what we utilize in the field, which are purple air monitors. So these, as the name suggests, are fixed. They're very reliable. So these are the ones that actually have a very, very strong correlation with the government monitors. So upwards of 95, 98%. And they also upload data directly to the cloud. And this is called the crowd map. So the purple air uploads data to that crowd map, and then it shows your actual site as a little circle. And we'll get into all of that very shortly. Behind the technology, so it utilizes a laser particle counter, and through an algorithm, it's able to depict your PM1. So these are ultra fine particulate matter that are less than 1 micron diameter, PM2.5, which are fine particulate matter, and PM10, which are the larger dust particles. And this specific monitor uploads data to the cloud approximately every 2 minutes. So you have pretty continuous surveillance. In addition to PM, it also measures humidity as well as temperature. So we can look at correlations between, between excess heat, PM2.5 counts, as well as humidity. So that's another interesting aspect about this monitor. There is some important information to know about the Purple Air. So as you can see in this picture here, to the right, it has 2 built-in monitors, and that's done on purpose. That's for what we call inter-rater reliability, and that's to ensure that it's not it's working properly. So if one read-in is above the other, and we'll get into what that means, you actually get 2 read-ins per sensor. You know that something's wrong, and you have to see if you need to replace it or if you need to calibrate it, etc. So that's why you have 2 built-in chambers. In order to set one of these up, you need the following items. So you need stable Wi-Fi to keep them running. So that's sort of a limitation of the Purple Air monitor if you're in an area that's considered a broadband desert and lacks adequate internet infrastructure. You also need an external power supply or outlet. What we've done before at some locations where we lack an external power supply is we use outlet from indoors, and then we have these extension cords, and we're able to actually loop the Purple Air monitor and use power tools to fix it into like the brick wall, and then have the wire run into the room through a window. Additionally, when you deploy them, so in addition to power tools, we also have zip ties, are these little, I'm blanking on the name, but I prefer them as zip ties, where you can actually fasten it into place, say around a pole or a railing or something else like that. So if you're not too versed with power tools, this is an easy alternative to set it up. So you got your Purple Air monitor, you purchased it, you have the following, sorry, I set up order. You have the following items in your box. So I just wanted to share this picture really quickly. You have the Purple Air monitor itself. You have this USB connector. You have these screws and zip ties over here to mount it. So what do you do when you have all of that? Well, you want to find the port in your Purple Air monitor and plug it into an outlet, as I had mentioned earlier. Once you do that, a light will flash, and that will indicate that it is receiving power, so that it's on and it's working well. Once that's the case, and I know we can't really do a live demonstration because we don't have Purple Airs on deck, but you'll want to connect to its hotspot. So similar to when you're connecting to Wi-Fi on your phone, you'll go to settings and you'll look for a connection that's labeled Purple Air. And following that would be the last 4 digits of the serial number of the device. Once you are able to connect to the Purple Air through the hotspot, you'll then connect to your local Wi-Fi. So it's a pretty, complicated process, but essentially you want to, for example, we at the University of Maryland will select our local Wi-Fi, which is UMD Guest, but you will log into whatever your specific local Wi-Fi is. So once you do that, the Purple Air monitor will start to depict your data on this sort of like this screen over here. So this will go away, and then it'll show the PM2.5 live. So this is live data. Every Purple Air monitor does have a built-in chip. And so if you don't have internet access or infrastructure, you can actually use the chip that's built in and use a chip reader and actually read the data from there. So that's an interesting aspect of this monitor. The only downside to that is you can't upload it to the crowd map. So after you're able to get the sensor to work, there is a brief process that we like to follow, that we do follow at Siege to ensure quality assurance. So we will do what we call a co-location. And all this means is we place these monitors alongside government monitors. As I mentioned earlier in this presentation, these government monitors are very accurate. They follow those quality assurance guidelines, but they're very sparse. So we go to the nearby Beltsville Howard University Beltsville location, which is operated by the Maryland Department of the Environment. And we simply use the zip ties and fasten these purple layers by the poles right next to these government monitors. We let them sit for 2 weeks. That's sort of our sweet spot. We come back, we look at the data, and then we ensure that the values are very similar. So we look at the correlations and we have algorithms to do that. And we found similar results where the similarity is about 95, 98%, which means that they're working well. If they're not up there and if there's a large drop off and if you see any outliers, then we want to revisit that purple layer. So we want to reformat that and we take care of that. So we want to make sure that what we're deploying into the field is accurate. And that's what this is indicated with redeployment at a selected site. So once you've co-located the monitor and once you've realized it's collecting valid data, you want to deploy it at your selected site. So at our hyperlocal, in our community. And these are just some additional steps that you want to follow. Obviously, there are a lot of confounding factors out there. You can't always anticipate when there might be a barbecue that can interfere with your readings. You might not be able to tell when, there's a bakery that just opened up next door because that can interfere as well. You also have a lot of weather events. So extreme weather events, thunderstorms, hail, and sometimes that'll knock out a purple layer, break some of the wires, and you can't always have it tucked in neatly. So this is why we like to come in and provide monthly or bi-weekly maintenance inspections to make sure that there's no damage. And so on the right, this is actually a picture of the crowd map. So you're actually, when you go onto the crowd map, you'll see all these circles. And then when you zoom in, you'll be able to actually find your specific monitor and you can look at the data from there. And these are just a couple of, just some different things you can do with the data. So all the data is placed into an Excel spreadsheet. So you can download that and then you can import that into various statistical tools. Personally, I like to use SAS, but a lot of folks like to use Excel, and you can do a lot in Excel. Actually, you don't even need some of these statistical packages. And these are just a couple of the many things that you can do. You can generate trend lines. You can also look at inferential statistics. So what are the day-to-day differences? What's the difference between the morning rush hour, which is associated with traffic-related air pollution, versus off-peak versus evening rush hour? What about a weekday versus weekend? So there's a lot of these statistical tools that we like to deploy to look at the data. So that's sort of my overview of the purple layer. I do have a purple layer exercise, and I feel like it's something that might clear a lot of questions. If folks want to participate in this, I can drop a link in the chat to the purple layer crowd map and kind of walk folks through how to access the data, how to install it, and sort of, what the different colors and all of that means. So, John, did you want me to sort of drop the link and then give everyone a couple minutes maybe to familiarize?
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fantastic. It'd be a good little introduction for everybody.
Okay, cool. And I can take any questions too while everyone's getting situated. So
So I know that you all, Vivek, you mentioned that you all come out and check on the devices. Do you all know, based upon how the platform that you're using to collect the data, whether or not the monitor is still online or if it's offline? Does it read in that way?
Yes. And I'll show you exactly how if it's online. 1 second. I'm going to get back to can you still see my screen, or am I unshared?
We can see your screen, but we're looking at PowerPoint. We're not seeing anything else.
Okay, yeah, let me just figure this out. 1 second. Okay, there we go. Okay, so introductory comments. I thought I missed some questions in the chat, so I wanted to make sure I had a chance to look at that. Yep. All right, so I dropped a link in the chat, and so Purple Air does use cookies to kind of see where you last, access the map. And for some reason, it's showing Newark, New Jersey, which is actually one of our partnered communities. So I think that's what the coordinates are here. So could someone just let me know where it takes them, and if they're able to access the crowd map?
I pulled it up and it shows, I think the Cheverly, Maryland network.
Oh,
That's what I'm seeing.
Cheverly, Maryland, another one of our
Mhm.
partnered communities. So, it's smart. Like it knows that I want to check on the data there because we have biweekly calls with the town of Cheverly. Wonderful. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen again. There we go. All right. Does everybody sort of see the same thing that I see on their screen?
Yes, I do at least. I can't speak for anybody else.
Okay, I hope it's the same because this is real-time data right here. So right now the numbers are kind of stationary, but they will change every couple minutes, and that's because it's uploading data continuously. So what you see here is our hyperlocal network in Cheverly, Maryland, and we have about 23 to 24 monitors. Some of these over here are actually not with us, so these are sort of external endeavors. But the first thing you're going to want to observe is sort of the color of the circles. So the colors are actually associated with the PM 2.5 conversion to what's known as an air quality index. And this is able to determine whether the air that you're breathing is hazardous or not. And it does combine PM 2.5 with humidity and temperature values as well, from what I know. So if the circle is green, that indicates that the air quality is satisfactory. If it's in this orange to red shade, that indicates hazardous air. And then in the, I guess it's maroon to purple shade, you have extremely hazardous air. So if you were to like zoom out of this and go, across say to California to where the wildfires were over the summer, you would definitely see some of this purple to maroon. And then Marvin, you mentioned offline versus online. So if there is a storm, let's say there's a storm that hits Cheverly and it knocks out power or it breaks the wires of the Purple Air monitor, then it'll end up looking something like this. And this is a great example. So this shows that if it's gray, if the circle's gray and there's actually no number on it, that means that it's not collecting data. And the good thing about the Purple Air is it tells you exactly how long it hasn't been receiving data for. And this is pretty much close to a year. And this means that, we should probably check in on this specific monitor, replace it and, see what's going on. For some reason, we haven't replaced this one yet, but we have replaced others throughout the region and we have, rebooted some of them as well. But you can see other examples further down south. So over here, you have another one. This is actually a park. Boyd P means Boyd Park. And that hasn't been collected for 144 days. But when you're looking at the ones that are active, so let's say you live right here. When you register a Purple Air, you'll actually be able to identify it by its name. So there was that slide that I had, and I can share the slide deck with everyone after this call. But when you register it, when you go through the sign in process through the Wi-Fi, you can name it whatever you want, and you can actually search for it here in the search bar. So it's easier to pull up. And then what you can see is the Purple Air actually does produce an immediate trend line, but we probably want to do a little bit more with this data. So on the bottom left, you'll actually see this little download icon. So it'll open up a new tab. So if anyone wants to sort of try that with another monitor, they can click on that. right here in the bottom left. And so the purple air is a very interesting, the interface, or however we call it, is very interesting because it doesn't just pull up the purple air monitor that you clicked on, it pulls up every purple air monitor that's in your window. So everything here.
What do you mean by window? You mean the window of the screen? Or...
Window of the screen, window of the
Okay.
screen. Yes. So it pulls up everything in that's visible right here. So you do kind of want to zoom in if you can, just to limit that. But going back to this was Chevrolet AQM W11. So we have a system that we refer to W as the ward. And then this is ward 1, sensor number 1 in order of deployment. So you'll want to scroll until you find that. It's right here. And so I mentioned earlier that there's 2 built-in chambers to the purple air. So you have a primary A and a primary B. So one thing that you could do, and we've already done this, is you can download both of these, the primary A and primary B. And if there's a big difference between the two, then you have an issue with your sensor because one of them is not reading correctly. Because they're in the same sensor, they should be reading the same values. But we've already went through that process and we found out that they were strongly correlated. So when you go to the top of your screen, back to the top of your screen, you're going to see a start and end date. So we can pick any date sort of as a demo. I have it in here already as June 1st. What's today's date? September 26th. So we could go ahead and change that if we want to. Let's say we want to go and start. Let's say we want to do a 1 month collection. So August 26th, all the way up until today. That's how you do that. So you can choose, you can use the calendar to select your start and end dates accordingly. And then there is an option to look at different averaged lengths. So you could look at, say, you know, the 1 day average, which is how many minutes in 1 day? I'm trying to remember that. But you have 60 minutes, which is 1 hour. And then you have, 1 day averages too. So let's say we want to look at 1 hour averages. One of the benefits of that is you can look at, differences. We call this diurnal and differences. So differences in the morning versus afternoon, versus if you only looked at 1 day averages, you wouldn't be able to account for that. So I hope that makes sense. And then you just want to go back down to your sensor. Again, whichever one that you wanted to look at. But this was our example right here. W1_1. And then you're just going to hit download primary A. That's all you need. All right. If everyone else wants to give that a try, you don't have to use the same sensor. You can use a different one. If you want to go to a different part of the United States as well, if you want to look at your specific, nearby your specific community, then by all means, go for it. If there's a monitor there, and then do the same thing, just go hit download right here, and it should pull up your monitors. And I think what I would like to do is have folks possibly share, the sort of their download from the monitor of their choice, just so we can get a feel for the air quality for the last month. So once you do that, you're going to hit download primary A next to your monitor. It'll say done, and then you'll see this Excel CSV file that's ready for us to view. So I'm just going to click on that. Some other data, sorry. And yeah, there you go. That's the output of your Purple Air monitor. From the time you selected to start, so I selected August 26th, all the way until, there you go, September 26th.
Can you show us again how you got from, so I found my area, I clicked on one of the green circles,
Yes.
but how did you get to like the whole listing of all the monitors in the area?
Yes. So when you click on your specific circle, so when you click on the circle, it's a little bit redundant because when you click on the circle, all it's going to give you is this for that sensor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So like, for example, this one is going to read differently. Because what Purpler wants to do is give you some data that you can already use and already put into a report. But if you want to be more in depth, you will go here. So right above this legend, there's a down.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's a download right there.
Okay.
And then when you hit download, it should pull up all the air monitors that are kind of on your quote window. So what's visible on your crowd map. So what I like to do is zoom in as much as I can, just to make sure, you know, I don't get other monitors from other communities. And then when you scroll down, you should be able to find it. And I think it's in alphabetical, it should be in alphabetical order. Yep.
All right. And you want us to do a 1 month?
Yep. So at the top,
shutdown.
there you go. Yep. At the top, you could even go further back. It depends on when the Purpler monitor was installed at that given location, but I think 1 month's a pretty good starting point. And you know, some people might be interested, some folks might be interested in looking at even 10-minute averages. So if you want it to be even more precise that way, you'll just get more data, you'll get more observations. So you'll get, you know, 10.
Or rush hour period.
What was that?
Or a rush hour period.
That's right. Yep. So you get data from 6 a.m. to 6:10 to 6:20 to 6:30, whereas these 1 hour averages will give you 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you want to look at daily averages, I think this is 14, 40 minutes should be a day, right? Or am I about that much? Yeah. There's a reason it's cut off that way. I'm just trying to figure out my math here, and the reason why folks use daily averages is because the EPA has both daily and annual standards. So it's a pretty firm comparison. If you use a daily average for daily standards, EPA standards for PM 2.5, and then your daily averages here. And yeah, you should get something similar to this. Obviously that will probably differ from based on your monitor. So again, with Purpler, they do make things a little bit complex sometimes, but this is our column of focus. This is PM 2.5, and the ATM is outdoor ambient air quality. So you can delete these 3 columns.
Wait, we're not.
I don't think we
Your
can see your
Excel.
spreadsheet.
Yeah, we're still seeing the website, not the
Oh,
the data that you pulled down.
yeah, 1 second. Okay, if I share whiteboard, maybe? Let me see if I can do this. Okay, is that better?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, my apologies. Usually like I share my,
No sweat.
but I didn't have the option to share my entire screen. It was just like different tabs. So yeah, what you'll want to do is this last column is sort of this is what we're really interested in. This is the outdoor PM 2.5, outdoor fine particulate matter, one of the EPA's criteria air pollutants. You also have temperature and humidity, which is also important to keep. And then you have your created at times. So these values over here are actually indoor values. So if your monitor is outside, you can just delete these. So you can go ahead and delete those, and that's indicated by, it should say CF, CF1, CF1, CF1. So
I only got 1 line when like just the headers. I didn't get any information, so I must have done something wrong.
not necessarily. That could also mean that the data is not collected from that time period. Yeah. Yeah, you could also try download a sensor from another location and see if it produces the data in the same way. So you just go to the bottom left and hit download, and then find your air monitor, start and end dates accordingly. But for those of you who are at this point, we can just go ahead and delete columns. Right click delete. These also do not add any importance to our data, so we can go ahead and delete this. This is uptime as well as dBm, delete these as well. So you have, once you're done sort of cleaning the data, you have your timestamp, you have your temperature, you have your humidity, and then you have your PM 2.5. And from there, the sky is in terms of the analysis. So within Excel, you could insert a chart, at trend lines. You could even, this is like your PM 2.5 temperature and humidity. You could look at the average for the entire duration of your study period. So for a 1 month average, you have 767 observations because we're looking at hourly data. So within Excel, what I could just do to just quickly skim my data is do an equals average. And then for that column for PM 2.5 over here, and that's your average PM 2.5 level exposure for 1 month for that specific monitor. And just a couple of things to note about cutoff points. So the EPA standards, and this is something that's been discussed at various atmospheric chemistry and air quality conferences, is the idea of utilizing the WHO or World Health Organization standards instead, because they're more protective of public health. So currently the EPA standard for PM 2.5, the EPA's daily standard is 35 micrograms per meter cubed. And the WHO's daily standard is 15. So as of right now, we see that the average meets both those standards, but then you also have peaks, like you have constant days where it is above the WHO standard, but it's not above the EPA standard. And that's really where a lot of discourse is in the scientific community about should the standards be reduced even further. And the EPA is working on reducing their standard. Actually, it's a work in progress. And I believe we should see something within the next few months. And that's something I gained from attending one of their conferences. So yeah. But yeah, I think I just want to stop there for a second. I think, I don't want to go too deeply into the statistics. I think this is kind of a really good primary overview on the monitor, on the crowd map, and just how to kind of access the data. So I can go ahead and stop sharing my screen and let folks, ask any additional questions, or if they wanted more clarity on, on the tool, et cetera, and just want to keep this as conversational as possible too.
What to go back to what you just said about the different standards between the WHO and the Fed standard. What accounts for the difference? Is it just the WHO is being overly cautious, or?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's backed by data, but also with the WHO being an international organization, I'm sure there's various influential factors that come into play. I can't speak on the politics behind that.
Oh, sure. I wasn't sure if it was a scientific basis or not.
It is scientifically backed. It is scientifically backed, but their research utilizes a lot more of European studies.
Okay.
But for the EPA, there has been talks to reduce their standard from at least their annual standard. So their annual standard for exposure is 12 micrograms per meter cube. And they reduced that to somewhere between 8 to 11 from the last conversation. So that's a pretty drastic drop off. The WHO annual standard is 5 micrograms per meter cube.
Gotcha.
So I got
So
a question,
a
Vivek.
little bit of time.
As you talk numbers, that stuff goes over my head because I'm not as in tune, is the term I would use, with my interest in, in air quality in terms of knowing the data, and wanting to know the data. So the color coding is good on that map.
Yeah.
On the link. Have you all ever seen it get to red? And what does red mean? And what does red mean, for instance, if I'm outside or if any one of us is outside?
Right. So,
Filters.
right. So for Cheverly, we haven't seen it. Like when I would actively be on the crowd map, I haven't seen it, but there are peaks where we've seen the PM 2.5 levels exceed 100. And interestingly enough, this was correlated with this during the same time as the California wildfires. So, these are conversations we want to have with, atmospheric chemists and others who kind of track extreme weather events and kind of their trajectory across the United States. So that was an instance in July where we saw that elevated peak, and that's when the AQI would have been red. But during active surveillance, when I was on the crowd map, I haven't seen it personally go red. But what that does mean is that the air quality is extremely hazardous for those who not only experience, asthma, COPD, and other respiratory conditions, but for the average citizen, the average resident as well. I see a question about the lecture being available. I can make the slides available after the presentation. Ariel or Noble could probably forward that to you.
Yeah. Ariel's given me a copy, so I'm going to distribute that with the recording. It shouldn't even be a week. It'll probably be a couple days, but yes, we'll have a recording available.
Perfect. And sorry.
I probably missed some of the statistic stuff because I was looking around on the map. And
I tried to keep it. I try not to go too deeply into it. My apologies. I try to stop myself. Once I got some charts. Yeah.
I just happened to go down to Atlanta, and there was like a red circle that was like 158 or something. It was southwest of the downtown, and it's a monitor that's on an apartment complex. So it made me wonder whether or not they'd had a fire or they were having a big cookout or whatever.
Yeah.
Because, some of them were red, and then there was green for the overall time. So whatever it was cleared, I guess. But
I mean, that also speaks, magnitude to the very hyperlocal differences that we see at the block level. So I actually lived in Atlanta for 2 years for my master's, and I worked in Southwest Atlanta by East Point. Well, it's not technically Atlanta, but it's in the southwestern region of the Atlanta metropolitan area. And that's right where the airport is. And there's a lot of industrial activity sort of saturated there. So I'm wondering if that is an influence for that particularly high read-in. Specifically in Cheverly, our former mayor actually would record overnight operations at the Joseph Smith and Sons recycling facility and other industrial quarters at 3 a.m. So there was sort of illegal operational activity going on. So you could go on the crowd on the map, and you could probably go to that timestamp and see, oh, was there a peak here? And then correlate that through the imagery, through photography, to that illegal activity. But I want to shield away from using the word illegal because I don't want to get myself in trouble. So let's just say there was operations going on outside of business hours, and that could be where those red circles come in. And yeah.
I had a question, and I might have missed this in a previous meeting, but once you collect all of this data, what is the next steps for you all to do with that?
Yeah, so we work with the Maryland Department of the Environment, and they are actually able to differentiate whether those hyperlocal differences are driven by local, which is like in the community, versus more regional factors, such as from, say, in Cheverly, Maryland, it's right next to Washington, D.C. So are there factors from Washington, D.C. influencing those levels? And they also have meteorologists who help us sort of identify these confounded variables too. But, we've put these reports together. So we look at diurnal differences. So we look at morning rush hour versus off peak. We look at day of week differences, and we run a lot of statistical analysis at our center. And we work with the government agencies, and we work with the community to get their input. And we ask them, when we meet with the community bi-weekly, we actually ask them, like, So we've seen elevated levels during this time. Is that reflective of what's actually going on in the community? Or could that be an error with the crowd map? So there's a lot of data validation, there's a lot of data curation, there's a lot of just, ensuring that we have a story that is valid and a story that is worth telling. And we do have publications that are pending that have been submitted to various journals. Specifically for Cheverly, we have one for Uniontown, Alabama, and we will have one. Noble, actually, who's on this call, is working on, he's leading a partnership with our team in Newark, New Jersey. So we get we update the scientific literature as well and contribute that way.
And just to, yes, great. Exactly what Vic said, but just to add to that, we will also be using some of the data to update the Center's Maryland Environmental Justice Screening tool. So it will be used in a lot of different avenues to further improve and promote environmental justice activities within communities.
And it makes me wonder, so like the PM 2.5, the ozone, and all the other percentiles that you see through these mapping tools, I wonder if that's contributed to from the government monitors, or if we're able to utilize community science to populate those tools accordingly and update those tools. So it's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a question too. This is Marvin. Sort of a combo question. So have you all sort of reviewed the list of churches we sent to you that we informed you that are eligible to participate in this program? Again, those are our churches in DC and Maryland. And I wanted to know, do you all have any sort of existing, I guess, monitors in and around those locations where you will be installing one at their site or potentially their site? I know that John is going to update you with a new list of those churches that have signed on to participate in the pilot. And then the second one is, in the last workshop, Professor Wilson discussed the partnerships that you all have in New Jersey. And although this particular funding initiative is not focused on New Jersey, he mentioned the possibility of having our churches engage with your New Jersey partners there. And we want to really follow up on that because we have a number of New Jersey churches who are passionate about environmental climate justice. And we think this will be a great opportunity for them to get more deeply engaged in the issue beyond what they may be doing at their local church site in terms of making their building more greener, but also be in relationship and partnership with people on the ground to do this work together.
Right, thank you. To answer the first question, Ariel, I'm assuming you have that comprehensive list. I don't think I have that list on my.
Right. So we do have to circle back. I have created a meeting already with Dr. Wilson, so we can have like a, I guess, go through. I believe I communicated with John to have a better detailed timeline, so that we can see what would make most sense to get to the specific location. With the updated list, that would actually be helpful. So we can review that whenever you get the chance. You could send that over to me. And then we'll meet with the team, and then I will communicate again with you guys at ASAP so that we can at least get on the same page regarding when we start moving forward with deployment of the sensors.
We are moving forward with regional installations, specifically with high schools. So I anticipate it wouldn't be an issue to get the ball rolling as soon as possible with the churches as well. And then in terms of the New Jersey question, Noble leads the New Jersey partnership. So I don't want to put you on the spot, Noble, but if you wanted to take that question possibly.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we should set up a time to talk with Dr. Wilson just a little bit more to flesh out the partnership a little more. But we're looking to, I think, expand these hyperlocal air quality monitoring networks. So I think either we can like sort of directly in contact, or we set up a meeting with some of our New Jersey partners, you all, and some of the New Jersey churches as well, to try to get a brainstorming session going. So I know we haven't, as Ariel mentioned, we're going to talk to Dr. Wilson about some other things in general. So it's definitely something we can put on our agenda for that.
Sure. So Noble, what John and I can do is we could do a number of things. We could find some key leaders in our New Jersey churches to be a part of an initial conversation with he and I, with your team, to talk about what, if anything, in regards to New Jersey. I think it may be also helpful too, just to see if this, would even make sense. We could provide you at least a list of our New Jersey churches, and maybe you could sort of map them out based upon where you all have current partnerships. Where would it make sense possibly to have a monitor located as part of any existing monitors and networks that you already have on the ground? What we want to avoid is just saying, hey, church, New Jersey church, you should be a part of this, but it's a monitor that's always out somewhere where there's no other, connection with a broader network. So we want it to make sense, and we understand that's probably critically important in terms of participation. But to sort of move things along, we can give you a list of our New Jersey churches by the end of the week.
And-
That sounds great.
and
Go ahead, Vivek.
Oh, and I was just going to say, and just to make sure that, they're within the same network, we could expand we have a community advisory board, so we can include them on the community advisory board so that they have a voice in, what we do with the data, how we disseminate it, and what we should be looking for. So that's another way that we can keep them, as part of that network.
We have a question from the chat from Beth. The monitors being installed on churches are just monitoring PM 2.5. Is that the case?
PM particulate matter right now, yes. So we have PM 10, which are the larger dust particles. You have PM 2.5, which is one of the criteria air pollutants that the EPA regulates. So that's why we did the exercise with the EPA standard versus, the average that we see on the map. And then you have PM1, which are more those ultra fine particulates, and PM1 and PM 2.5 are small enough to enter your lungs, penetrate into your bloodstream, and that's what leads to those adverse health outcomes. That's well documented. But a lot of the mobile monitors, so the personal monitors, actually measure other elements, compounds like volatile organic compounds. We actually started a purchase of black carbon sensors as well. But these are they're really big. I'm like, they're considered portable, but it's when they say portable, it's definitely a subjective thing. They're relative, they're a little bigger and a little bit more pricey as well. Like those can be in the $1,000 range.
Yeah, portable the way a backpack's portable.
Yeah. But yeah, black carbon is emerging as one of the more primary indicators of health-related impacts, alongside PM 2.5. So I'm assuming they're trying to make a profit off of those monitors as soon as they can. So
could you clarify what you mean by black carbon, just for the benefit of the audience?
right. So it's still novel to me as well, but Dr. Wilson did mention it as an emergent air pollutant, but I'll have to get back to you. I'm not too familiar with the term. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think we should actually just not add too much information, because I feel like this was so robust. I think great question, but I think it was such a robust, delicious presentation that I feel like it would be better for folks to kind of be able to focus on. Specifically, just to reiterate, we will be using the purple air monitors. I know that we saw some personal and some stationary, but the purple air monitors is what will be installed. And yes, PM 2.5 that's what it'll be monitoring, but as Vivek said, it will also be the other PM, particulate matter measurements. But that would be the one that we would specifically be looking at regarding environmental justice community.
Right. And we already have what we call correction factors. So state level agencies develop a correction factor based on the state's network and its correlation with their government monitors. So we already have that ready to go. For PM10, you'd probably have to create one. There we go. Black carbon is pretty much soot and soot-like particles. Noble has put in the chat. But yeah, so we would have to create our own correction factor for PM10, most likely. So in a sense, it is less work if we do look at PM 2.5, and it's a primary indicator of health. So it kind of works that way. It works out that way, I should say.
So I have another question. So is it that the church is going to receive all these churches are going to receive the monitor in the mail, and then are we picking the place where it's installed, or how? Okay, yeah,
Well, it's okay. So we really like to engage in, within a partnership. It's a partnership. So we like to co-develop a community air monitoring plan. So we will work together to pick a specific site. We'll have our team, our members of our team, scout the area to make sure that it can be mounted. We'll make sure that the church is okay with it being mounted at a specific location. We'll make sure the wires are tucked away. You won't receive it in the mail and just have a device there. Like we will be able, we want to host more workshops like this where we can actually walk folks through on site. So in person, and show them how to actually install it to make sure that they can train, that we call it train the trainer approach, where we train them and then they're able to train residents so that residents can also contribute to the network, and it really branches out that way. But no, you won't just be left alone with the device.
Okay,
Right,
thank you.
and to add to that, I know we, in previous workshops, we've also discussed like people being worried about like having to climb up on ladders and, worried about falling and hurting themselves. Just to fix this monitor, as they showed you on the map, we will see when something is off, when it's not picking up the data that it needs to be picking up, and we will be closely monitoring that. And so you, as Vivek mentioned, we would train people, but I feel like in the initial spaces, you wouldn't have to worry about that. We would come and change it if something needs to change. But we'd also put it in a position where it's not crazy for you to reach if you did need to kind of just double check to see if it's flowing as it should flow.
Yeah, the sort of sweet spot is 8 to 10 feet above the ground. So you're not necessarily, on one of those fire truck ladders or really long ladders to set them. Yeah, we do want to prioritize safety for sure.
All right, anybody have any other questions while we have a minute? All right, well, Sia, why don't you hop on camera so we can see and hear you?
My camera is broken on this laptop.
Oh, no sweat.
But what is your projected time frame for getting to us on the ground to identify the places where these monitors will be installed and to have whatever kind of workshop you're going to have? And about how many people would you want us to gather for such a workshop and installation?
Right. So the workshops would be essentially these, I guess, bi-weekly workshops that we're having. And as we mentioned, we still have to get into the specifics, the meat of, I guess, more personalized to this segment time frame. So we right now we're kind of aiming for fall. I know we discussed this. Reverend Silva and John and Robin, we've discussed a fall beginning of installation of monitors. But again, I think it's necessary if we have a more specific timeline so that we can also share that with everybody and let everybody have a better understanding of when something is going to happen, just have a better breakdown. So that will be shared with you guys through Reverend Silva and John and Robin.
And the scouting of the sites can definitely be more of an informal approach sooner. But, we have memorandums of understandings and other contractual documents. So, if you're coming on board an existing partnership, say like in Newark or near the Cheverly location, then we're more than happy. Well, at least for Cheverly, Maryland, because we're based in College Park, Maryland. We're more than happy to conduct a site visit with our air quality team.
All right. Anybody else? One more time.
I feel like we were all staring at each other like.
Mhm. I don't want to be the guy to ask for Bueller, but you know, when the crickets start chirping.
This is Anthony Richardson from Howard University. My apologies for joining the call late. So I missed the wonderful presentation. I just had a question about the timeline for working with the churches, installing the device, and then the educational sessions that were mentioned. I was on the last call, but I'm not sure if you talked about that this time.
Okay, yeah, so no problem. Hi, Finney. So we were just saying that we have a generalized timeline of having the installation start around fall, but we have to kind of iron out the specific dates. So we do have a basic timeline, but honestly, I don't want to share that because I know it's going to change once we get into the meeting with Dr. Wilson and the rest of the team. But we'll have that across to have that across and shared with you all as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And I just put the schedule,
Right.
the remaining schedule in the chat, as well as where you can go and find the recordings. I think the recordings are also accessible on our website as well. Just click the link of one of the previous workshops, and I believe it will take you to the recording and materials from the previous sessions.
Yeah, if you go to the section on the website where we have the calendar of upcoming workshops, the previous ones are all hyperlinked. So if you click that, it'll take you to YouTube and you can watch whatever you might have missed. So. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I think that's probably a good indication it's time to call it. So thanks, Vivek, for walking us through everything. It's really appreciated. And thanks everybody for coming and joining us for the third workshop in our series. Thanks to the Siege folks and to Robin from IPL for joining us. It's nice to be a team on this.
Right.
And we'll
I have a
this
few
recorded.
announcements, John,
Oh, yeah.
before you
Absolutely.
move
Before
us
I
out.
send
You
all
moving pretty
off into the
quick.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't I hand it over to Marvin before I
Sure.
close him out before he gets a chance.
Yes. So I just want to thank everyone for doing your due diligence and being with us here this evening. We really appreciate it. We know that this is a real commitment to come on to these workshops this fall, where church life is picking up, where schedules may be competing with what we're offering this evening. So again, just thank you. Just wanted to remind everyone as we continue to move forward with the rest of our work on this initiative, but also for our Faith and Democracy campaign. We just wanted to alert you that please be on the lookout for communications from us. In the coming weeks, we're going to be launching our 30 Days of Get Out the Vote initiative. And as part of that, we will be releasing a series of written articles as well as video pieces entitled From Our Prophetic Voices of Justice, from both clergy and leaders in our local churches, speaking about important election year issues. And we'll be giving you some information and resources on how to use those tools in your local churches, but also in your local communities as well. So I just wanted you to be aware that that's coming and be on the lookout. And I want to just sort of give you an update. That last workshop, November 28th, Faith-Based Community Organizing. We are probably going to reschedule that for December 2nd and 3rd. The Justice and Witness Action Network is planning to hold our fourth quarter gathering of network members across the conference for a time of training, of gathering in preparation for our work together in 2023. So it's there where you will get a better understanding of faith-based community organizing. So just pencil in those dates on your calendar, and we'll be sharing more information with you next week about that. We just wanted to give you a heads up if you've already marked your calendar and are ready to be with us on the 28th, we may reschedule that. So I think that's it. Robin, you have anything from IPL that'd be good for the folks to know about in terms of what you all are doing?
Yeah, thanks for asking. In conjunction with what UCC is doing with regard to voting, we also have a Maryland Souls to the Poll. So, and Reverend Silver, you and I haven't had a chance to talk, but we have some small grants that were given to churches to do parties at the poll or help with transportation, either for early voting or for the day of. So please, I'll put it in the chat, but if you check out our website as well, and if your church is interested and you're in Maryland, this is a Maryland program, but we're just supplementing what UCC is doing by providing some resources for you. So that's something that's exciting that we just finalized. So
Great. We'll be sure to share that, Robin. Thanks. And I'll turn it back over to you, John. Any final words you got?
No, I think you guys just about covered it all. With the announcements out of the way, I'll go ahead and wrap it up and say thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you again on October 3rd for part 4. All right, until then.
Thanks, everybody.